Two lepers are out in the wilderness, sick and tired, lost and forsaken. They come upon a woman gleaming with light, standing before a spring, and they recognize her immediately from her bright hair, from her aura, the shine that she gives off to the world around her, that she is indeed Brigid. She who is the goddess of healing, the goddess of light, the goddess of holy waters and holy fire, the goddess of so many things. And they rush to her as best they can, and they beg of her, please heal us, relieve us of this affliction, give us our lives back, heal our wounds, comfort our weariness, remove our disfigurements, bring us back to health. And she takes the water from this holy well, this holy spring, and she takes it and blesses it and imbues it with her essence, imbues it with light and magic. And she tells them, wash one another in this water, and you will be healed. So the first leper does as she says, and he takes the water and he washes down his friend. And all of his wounds and his ailments dissipate from his body. His body, mind, and spirit cleansed and cleared. And now it is his turn to return the favor. And yet, he takes a step back. He says, no, I will not do this. I will not do this. He is revolted by the very idea of bathing his friend and healing his friend, reciprocating the favor that his friend did for him, and following the guidance of the goddess who gave him the very tool to do it, even though he was the beggar. And though his friend waits to be healed, still suffering, still sick, and yet at the same time now watching his other friend, who's come into this new life, reject him, is hurt and heartbroken. Brigid takes her cloak very solemnly and wraps it around the leper who is waiting his turn, and draws from him the sickness out of him, and he is restored as well. And as the lepers walk away, Brigid takes her cloak, and with a flourish, and in her wrath, which she had concealed until this moment, throws back upon the ingrate the very leprosy she drew out of his friend, with a curse. The goddess Brigid, the slayer goddess of luminance and excellency, and she who we are going to be talking about today as we are coming up upon her season, the season of Imbolc, her festival beginning the 1st of February, though I like to look at Imbolc as an entire season, lasting from February 1st all the way up until the March equinox. And what we need to know about her, and even this time of year, and what you might want to know if you feel called to connect to Brigid, if you feel that this is a being that you are here to work with, or you would like to connect with her, or you're simply studying your path. The goddess Brigid has been a patron of mine for nearly 20 years now, and she is the first of the three who came to me. The next following her was Bast, and then following her was Herne, Cernunnos, the horned god. Brigid herself has always been this very strong mother, mentor, teacher, trainer, and even critic in my life, and she has been one of the most shaping influences in my world since I was in college. In fact, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have actually come onto YouTube and done anything with Scarlet Moon or Son of Selene or this. I wouldn't have gone into making the platform I have to do professional readings. I wouldn't have gone into making candles and oils, which I promise I will get back to again someday, because she was the one who inspired those recipes. She was the one who helped me charge and imbue those tools. This is the goddess who can do pretty much anything. Brigid is a very complicated goddess when you just take a look at her and you are out maybe looking at all kinds of different accounts, lists of correspondences. What does she rule? What does she take over? And this is where we definitely want to maybe think a bit more about the fact that there is so much, and less about the contradictions or maybe the things that appear to be contradictions when we are looking at her. Brigid is the goddess of many names, even within the Celtic world. She is Brigid, she is Bride, she is Bride, she is Brigantia. She is even Saint Brigid for the period of time that she was canonized as a Catholic saint, even though, as of 2020, she is no longer considered a Catholic saint. But even when we look at the accounts of Brigid as the Catholic saint, we can see that this is another instance of a goddess of the ancient world simply masquerading as a Christian saint that was again brought in during a time where absorption led to conversion, or absorption was used as a tool of conversion back in the Dark Ages. And even Saint Brigid herself, you can look at a lot of her stories and a lot of her adventures, and you can see this is not so much a Catholic saint so much as perhaps a lot of the stories of the Goddess Brigid retold. Not only does she have many, many names, but she is also, and in my opinion I do agree with this, where she actually has many counterparts in many different Celtic stories and many different Celtic cultures. And so while I was introduced to Brigid through her Irish origins, and thereby also extension even her Scottish and North English origins, I also do see Brigid in other Celtic realms. I also see Brigid in other cultures as well, other paths throughout the world. You know, I look at syncretism as an opportunity to see where divinity in its essence will incarnate, will show up in many different forms, in many different spaces, to serve in many different ways. But being what she is, Brigid, all about everything, it seems, it would only make sense that she would be one of those deities that would show up here as one, and here as another, and here as one, and here as another. So to me, she is Brigid, she is Bride, she is Brede, she is Brigantia, but she is also Minerva, Athena, she is also Sirona of Gaul, she is also the Welsh Rhiannon, she is also Artemis and Selene, she is all of these things and more. So what does she rule? What is she in charge of? How does she govern so much? She is the goddess of light and illumination, first and foremost. It is in her name. She is the goddess of water. She is the goddess of fire. She is the sun, the moon, the stars, illumination. She is, again, the goddess of truth and justice, the forge and battle and smithing, the achievement of perfect balance in polarity, the home and protecting the home, and nurturing and nourishing and caring, or healing, or providing inspiration, or psychic ability, developing magic and craft, or inspiring poets and writers and authors and educators, peacemaking. All of these things she is. She has so many of these quintessentially fiery and watery, solar and lunar, masculine and feminine traits all rolled into one. And I think that that is what makes Brigid Brigid. There is some debate about whether or not she is a solar deity, a lunar deity, or a stellar deity. With Brigid, as well as a lot of the others of the Dua de Danann, which is her pantheon, if you're going with her Irish origins, which is where I'm going with this, there really isn't anybody that is singularly attuned to, say, the moon or the stars. When I look at her, I do see, again, this blazing star goddess, this sun goddess, but I also see Artemis and Selene and the goddess of the moon. Anywhere where light comes from or where light is Brigid as well. Both the loving, warming, comforting light of the sun and the stars, but also the piercing light of the moon, the illuminating power that brings in what we always associate with the moon, the power of holy waters, the power of the psychic, the power of the augur, the power of magic. She is all. And so that is where I would say we are looking at a being that is all about stellar light, regardless of where it comes from. She even has a nickname, Brosaid, which a lot of people mistranslate as the fiery arrow in Gaelic, but it doesn't mean fiery. Brosaid means glowing arrow, gleaming arrow, shining arrow. And we also have to think back, when we look at a lot of these ancient texts and ancient accounts, anything that glowed bright or shined bright or had an intense radiance to it was often equated with fire. It glowed like fire. It shone like fire. It radiated like fire. Even lightning was once considered fire before we understood what was going on, or we had a different idea about what was going on. So while Brigid does have that fire in there, to me, she is light first and foremost. So whether it's sunlight, moonlight, starlight, all of it is within her purview. It is interesting also in this goddess that we see a great deal of concern with grief, the grieving, loss, and again, the guardian of cemeteries and those of broken families. And yes, we will talk about that. There's another story about this that I'll share with you. What watches over the cemeteries at night, right? What is patrolling the cemeteries at night? And it's often the moon and the stars that watch over the cemeteries, watch over the land, as well as who is watching over the grieving as they grieve into the night, losing sleep. Well, we've got the moon and the stars for that as well. And as a triple goddess, I look at her that way. There's the solar aspect, there's the lunar aspect, and then there's the stellar aspect. So where do broken families come into this when it comes to Brigid? This is something that is associated with her, and more often than not, what we do is when we look at deities, we are looking at their stories. We are also looking at chief myths that are associated with them that give us an understanding of what they could be all about, how they behave, what they go through, and what they do with what they go through. And so, as Brigid herself not only was part of co-creating a broken family, but is also the sufferer of a broken family, and also the goddess of grief and grieving. It is from she that we get the art of keening from. And keening is a form of melodic funeral wailing. It is actually an Irish art. And Brigid is said to have originated this art. In another very famous story about Brigid and the Duodecinan, her pantheon, Brigid is in a war between two clans. You've got the Duodecinan, her father the Dagda, and all of her siblings and kin, and their people, their kingdom, and the Fomorians, which also are deities of the other world themselves. However, the Fomorians are a lot more on the more twisted side of things. Some of them are very beautiful and fae-like, some of them are humanoid, and some of them are straight-up monsters. In fact, they are led by Balor, which is this grotesque ogre. There were plenty, however, of situations where there were Duodecinan wedding Fomorians as well. The god Lugh, for instance, is half Fomorian and half of the Duodecinan. Now, this story takes place following a war that had just ended with another clan. And the leader, the king of the Duodecinan, Nuda, has actually lost his arm and can no longer lead, can no longer be a king. And it's somewhat problematic because the belief is that because he is not perfect, he is not whole, he cannot lead. And so what ends up happening is Bres, another half Fomorian, half of the Duodecinan, rises up to kinghood and is actually wed to Brigid as an effort to bring peace in the war between these clans. Now, Brigid agrees to this. This is actually part of Brigid's decision. She is not forced. She agrees to marry Bres as part of her peacemaker aspect, as part of her desire, even though she was also, she's the one who blessed the forges for war. She's the one who raised the power in battle. She was the one who blessed the holy wells that were also healing the sick and dying on the side of the Duodecinan. She was there for it all. She agreed in the effort to now make peace to marry this man. Now, King Bres, he is seen as very beautiful, very charming, very intelligent, one of a lot of good ideas. And he's also often considered the Lord of Love spells. He's very manipulative and very cunning. None of these things work on Brigid. She is going in with complete clarity. She has her volition and her wits about her. And so it's a gambit that she is making. And for a time, it does work. But King Bres is an awful king. He levies heavy taxes against the Duodecinan. He turns everyone into slave, while, of course, lifting up his family, making sure that everyone is in service to his family, going back only to the Fomorians and on the Fomorian side of things. After a while, of course, many of the Duodecinan decide that they've had enough. They're done with this guy. And it is actually during a ceremony where a bard is actually performing for King Bres that Bres insults the bard and loses his temper, and the bard himself then curses Bres. And then what ends up happening is that Bres starts to lose his good looks. He starts to lose his mental faculties, and Bres becomes even more belligerent. Now, one of the things you've got to understand is that being an inhospitable king and being one that is ingracious is actually grounds for being deposed. And so King Bres is actually thrown out of his throne. He's cast out of his role as king. And this is where, effectively, King Bress and Brigid are separated. It's not really stated what happens with the two of them, but Bress goes back to his people and to his father among the Fomorians, and Brigid stays among the Duodecimans. So they are effectively divorced at this point. However, they do have a son, Rudon, who is, again, a member of both clans, a member of both families. And Rudon is kind of torn between his loyalties to his mother and loyalties to his father, and eventually, in that separation, goes in the direction of following the father, and becomes, more Fomorian in that sense. King Bress goes back to his father and wants to amass an army, get revenge, get my throne back, get my kingdom back. And his father says, no, I will not help you to get something through foul play, what you could not maintain under legitimate circumstances, what you could not actually hold on to under legitimate circumstances. I'm not going to bother. So then he goes to Baelor and sets up, and Baelor is like, absolutely, let's get ready to make war. Rudon, the son of Brigid and Bress, begins to act as a spy. He is welcome in both camps. He is welcome in both realms. Why? Because he is, of course, he's a member of both families, and for the most part, he has been very kind and very neutral in it all, and people kind of see him as sort of an innocent bystander, right? Kind of a collateral damage of the war, collateral damage of the divorce. But since he was actually brought into his father's yoke, however you want to look at that, some say it was because of just, blind loyalty to his father and compassion for his father. Some say it was, more like brainwashing. Some say it was always that way. It all depends. He does begin to act as a spy on behalf of his father and the Fomorians. The first act of being a spy is he actually lets his father know, like, all right, there is this well that has these magical properties, and it is, again, implied, this is one of Brigid's holy wells that she is blessed and empowered for this purpose, that the Duodecimans are utilizing to heal their sick and revive their wounded. And so they go and plug up the well. So once the well is sealed up and they no longer have access to the well, Rudon then returns with more information, more intelligence for his father and Baelor, and says they also have a sacred forge where Guvnu is creating all of these weapons out of this blessed enchanted forge that are giving them more power and more strength. They always stay sharp. They pierce everything. They are of the highest class and quality. This is a sacred forge that we need to destroy. And so Rudon goes to assassinate Givnu. And what he does is he actually takes one of the spears that was recently forged and stabs Guvnu, but he doesn't kill him. He only wounds him. And then Guvnu then takes the spear out of himself and kills Rudon. And it is after Rudon is dead and Brigid discovers him that she begins to keen. Her sound pierces the entirety of the Irish countryside. That is also why she is often associated with being a patron, of course, of orphans, children of broken homes. From this, we can also see where Brigid has also become associated with contracts as well, and again, law, but also as a check and balance against bad contracts. She can also be invoked, yes, for the dissolution of contracts. She is, again, a goddess of so many things. So what are some symbols of Brigid? How do you know if maybe Brigid is looking to call upon you or is looking to reach out to you? You may see certain things that actually remind you of Brigid or call upon you. Now, fire, of course, absolutely is one of her chief symbols. So flames, anything where you might be having dreams of fire, great bonfires, great torches, but also light itself. So the moon can also be a sign of Brigid. A woman standing before a great full moon carrying a torch is both the goddess Brigid and the goddess Selene. You might be working with her in her lunar aspect. You may see owls. Owls, also connecting back to Minerva and to Athena. Owls are also an animal that is correspondent to the goddess Brigid. Owls for wisdom, insight, inspiration, revelation, augury, anything that comes in with education, a focus on gaining wisdom in that respect. Serpents and snakes, especially when we are looking at Brigantia, we are looking at the goddess of regeneration and the turning over of a new leaf. Serpents and snakes can also be representative of Brigid. Cows especially, we talk about agriculture and nurturing and the hearth and the home and food and nourishment. Lambs, be having dreams of Snowdrops or dandelions also attributed to the goddess Brigid. This is the time of year where the snowdrops and the dandelions start to come back. So any kind of flowers that start to sprout or bloom in very late winter and in early spring. These are just a few signs and symbols of the goddess Brigid when you're going out and about in the world. If you're looking to connect with her or work with her and you're curious about various correspondence, what corresponds with Brigid, how you might want to set up an altar to her, or what tools you might want to bring to the table, what incense you might want to burn, or what oils you might want to wear or dress a candle with, or what stones you'd like to work with, let's talk about those now. So the correspondences for Brigid with regards to color. Red, white, blue, and gold. These four. And, of course, you can always substitute orange for gold as well. Red for the fire and the passion and inspiration. Forge, craft, protection, battle. The gold, the nourishment, the healing, the glory, the light, the solar aspect. Blue, the water, the healer, the augur, the psychic inspiration. And of course white, which covers everything, including healing and purity and protection. And white can also be seen as both a solar and a lunar color, one that also works with the stars, right, a stellar color. So each of these, it corresponds to Brigid quite beautifully depending on what you are calling upon her for. There are not really any historical accounts of stones and crystals being used with Brigid, so we are kind of making intelligent inferences based on what we know about various stones, and that is important to think about here. You know, not everyone was working with heaps and heaps of stones and crystals back in the day, right? It just wasn't happening that way. They were much more rare. So we're kind of taking, we're making an inference based on how we work with stones in more modern days, and then, of course, associating them with Brigid as she was and as she is. So for me, what I like to do when working with Brigid is first, again, what kind of stones associate with what? If we're talking about solar energy stones, of course, citrine is absolutely beautiful. But if you want fire, you might work with a carnelian or a fire agate or a garnet. She actually is the one in charge of blessing my garnet ring. Clear quartz, of course, can work across the board with everyone and everything. So if you just want a clear quartz crystal, that's perfectly fine as well. Selenite for the lunar aspect. Or if you want to work more with the watery aspect, you might work with ocean jasper or orca agate or blue lace agate. Herbs and flowers and essential oils. You might want to think about healing herbs as well as herbs that might have a little bit more of that wintry, early spring kind of scent to them. Mint, thyme, rosemary, all of them are perfect, right? Mint is all about communication. It's all about inspiration, clarity of thought and thinking. Lavender is, of course, very nice as well. Both of these herbs sync up really well with the psychic, the augur, the inspirer, the poet, the writer, and the educator that is Brigid. You may want to work with more spicy herbs, such as cinnamon or clove, when you're connecting with her more combative and battle-oriented aspects. You may want to think about working with thyme or rosemary if you are invoking more of the healer or the one who is focusing on truth and justice. Thyme is an herb used in a lot of truth spells. It's also used in a lot of psychic work, especially when you are looking to see beyond veils or to break anything that could be seen as a manipulation or a deceit. Rosemary, of course, is hailed as the all-purpose or almost all-purpose universal substitute when it comes to things considered white magic, whether it's healing or maybe it's for shielding or blessing the home. You might also want to think about working with grains, oats and wheat, barley. She is actually a goddess of beer as well, and so you might want to think about that as an offering too. And if you are thinking about making offerings to her, milk is a very traditional offering, especially around this time of year. So you might make an offering of milk or cream or butter, any kind of breads or foods that you make yourself. Anything that you make yourself is going to really please Brigid and really connect with her, and she will bless it and bless you. Candles are also an offering, just offering candles to her, presenting candles to her, whether you're offering the energy of the flame or you are offering the candles for her to take those on as vessels and conduits of her power and energy. That is something that I like to do around Imbolc. It is around Imbolc where I will actually take to Brigid many candles. I bought a ton of just white candles that I am going to actually draw on them etruscally. Brigid's cross and offer them to her to be working candles, right? To bless your working candles. Working candles you can light while you are working, whether it's you are hard at work or you are doing psychic work or healing work, any kind of spiritual work, to bring Brigid's presence and her essence into the space. You can also use working candles to charge anything that you are creating or to amplify a spell. So I actually have a bunch of 7-day candles for more of the as I am working, please be here, working candle purpose that I'm going to offer to her to bless and imbue and charge and take over. But I also have a ton of tea light candles that I bought for her as well to bless as charging candles and as working spell candles and amplifiers. She will work with you there as well. And there's so much more we can go into. The sky is the limit. It's honestly, this is a goddess where the sky is the limit, because actually she's a goddess of no limitations, and she's going to push you to challenge your limitations. You have to be creative. You have to have an imagination, and you have to be ready to work hard. But she will bless you for all of your hard work. And that is Brigid, the Slayer Goddess of Luminance and Excellency. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope it maybe gives you some ideas of what you might want to do as we go into Imbolc, or any time you've watched this video, whether you want to connect with her or you want to maybe get more involved in the season, attune to the energies of the season, or you have been feeling called by her for some time. I hope this video helps you out. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it, and I will see you all again soon.